everybody for joining us, and we're going to talk about the performance review. And we're going to talk about some ideals about it, some obstacles about it, and some choices that you have. But before we do that, I want to make sure, because this is for you, this is about you. So I want to make sure, let's talk about what success is tonight. All right. So tell me if you'd agree. If you got some insights, first about the classic view of performance reviews, you know, what the common process is and best practices in those. And, you know, is there a right way? And, you know, it's a supportive system. But then get some value out of some evolving options that you might want to consider. You know, a shift from sort of the past of doing things to the future. I'm going to share with you some thoughts about dismantling the tie between compensation and promotions. I'm going to talk to you about the importance of performance views on the culture and the problems with it on the culture. Just some ways of doing and some designing some words. So were there any other expectations that you had that you'd like to get out of tonight to make this successful for you? You could drop that in the chat box real quick. If there's anything I'm missing here, let me know what it is. And if it looks good to you, just pop in the chat book. Great. I know I can move forward. All right. I have a few of those. Any questions? Thank you, Angeli. All right. Let's dive in. By the way, success for me. I ought to get that out too. Success for me is you gain some value and some insights that are valuable, that good use of your time, and that it's good enough that you review some of these insights with the team that you work with, whatever. And the stretch goal for me is you just love it and will use the insights and ask other people to bring me back for more topics to do them soon. All right, so that would be success for me. So let's start by talking about the inputs and the outputs. I just want to review that it's there, but I'm not going to cover it tonight. So there's inputs to the performance review, you know, the external situation, maybe from clients and alliances and suppliers on what's going on there. There may be some internal decisions. We got strategy, structure, system skills. All those things go into the performance review, and foundational things like, you know, what are your dreams? What's your mission? What's your vision? What are your strategies and your culture? Those will affect the performance review. And the outputs of performance review, you know, it goes into career planning, you know, leveraging strengths and weaknesses and protecting what I call the Achilles heel. It's, you know, engaging the entire team in strategies that are going to attract and motivate and retain talent, and for scaling for exceptional growth. So all those things go into it. But I want to share, this is such a big topic, those inputs and outputs we're not going to discuss tonight. That'll be for another time. We're going to focus on the performance review itself, right? So set expectations. So classic performance review. I mean, a lot of people do performance review, and it's almost like you're not living up to your role as a manager or a leader if you're not doing performance review. So if you're doing them now, that's great. If things are going well, stay the course. Don't bother changing it if it's going well. If you need to freshen it up, consider it an evolution, right? Not a revolution. And I think you'll get especially a lot of value out of tonight. All right. And the objective today, really, to enhance your insight and add some options for you to consider. Can everyone see my slides okay, by the way? I'm on the right slide. You should be seeing right now, it says classic performance. Okay, I'm seeing some things in the chat room. I just want to make sure we're at the same place. Thank you. All right. So let's talk about the classic approach. All right. What's the classic approach? Well, process. And every year, we evaluate the quality of the employee's work, right? Evaluate the quality. And Angeli, I'm going to get to that. Classically, it's a year. Most companies do it. That's not what I'm going to be recommending later, right? The style most performance reviews are pretty formal. I mean, people get anxious about it. Not only the people giving the performance review, but the people getting the performance review. Pretty formal. I have a lot of anxiety. And the concept is it's supposed to support the goal setting with employees and the development of employees and have a great outcome. An analogy, when it works well, it's sort of like an annual physical with your doctor. Like you go in, hey, if everything's been going basically okay, at least once a year, we're going to do a check-in. We're going to talk and we're going to set some goals and we're going to talk about what's happened and all those things are happening, right? That makes sense? And hopefully, in a classic, you're going to get some insight. Ideally, the employee has a much better sense of what's expected of me and how well am I meeting expectations in the manager's eyes, the leader's eyes, and other people, and gain some agreement. Okay, gain some agreement on opportunities of growth and a strategy to correct problems. And yeah, Teresa points out, absolutely right, Teresa, that usually annually, unless we got some performance issues that need to be addressed. And then it goes out sooner. And I see Michael ask, Barry, you going to send out slides in the recording? Yes, he will. He always does that for the presentations I do. And I'm doing one a month now. So if you like this one, come back. And if you don't, I understand, but I'll be a little hurt. But at any rate, so what's the process? Well, ideally, the manager or leader is gathering facts throughout the entire year. Think about that. Gathering facts throughout the entire year. And ask yourself, how often does that really happen? And then two, the process is supposed to be they document significant things and their impressions. And they gather some measurements and some reports and stuff like that, and they set up the formal meeting. And they have feedback. And they have discussions. They have commitment to action plans. And then they follow up, and it's implementation of those action steps. Now, that's the classic approach that's been used for years and years and years, and a lot of companies just do it because that's what we do. And most, especially larger companies, have some version of this. Before I keep going, does that fit your experience? Is what I've shared so far fit your experience of a classic performance review system? Okay. Whoa, the lights in this room went off on me again, but as long as you can see me, that's okay. I guess I'm not moving around in the room enough, and I apologize for that, but we're still okay. So, what are some best practices? If you're using a classic view performance, if you're using that, there are some best practices, and that would be great. And Michael, I know that you asked about there being captions on. We've been asked in the past to turn them on. Some people strongly prefer that, so that's why I have it on the bottom. I hope that's not getting in the way, but I've been asked to turn them on, and that's why they're on. So best practices, one, involve the employee more. Less to do with gather the information throughout the year, evaluate reports, talk to other people, and then bring the person in for that formal review. All right, the more best practice is you really want it to be an exchange of information. All right, and what does that mean? It's just not one-sided. And again, best practice is nobody should be surprised about what this review is. I mean, it's really designed, best practice, to just reinforce discussions they've already had throughout the year, right? But again, think about the process. The process is gathering information, observing constantly, keeping those notes and putting them in a file, and then monthly progress reports is a best practice where an employee writes up short, concise every month and asks for a quick self-approval on those monthly, and that creates more trust and collaboration, which is we're all for. And then there's a 360-degree feedback. And 360 means we're getting feedback from people above us, peers, people that report to us, people below us, but, low levels of the organization, but people we interact with. And the idea is the manager pulls all that information and synthesizes it, pulls it together, finds what are the core themes here? And the way I like to think of it is done well, they make the complex simple when it's done well. And there's a set of criteria. And again, if the process is working for you, it's great. And these criteria would work no matter what your process is, I think. What are some of the criteria? Typically it's, hey, did they demonstrate initiative, not needing to wait for being told what to do? They saw something, they saw value, they saw a way to help other people, they took action. Two, a common criteria is they ask questions, because frankly, it's a little bit like a doctor. If you're not asking questions, it's difficult to add extra value, because how would you know what value to add? It's through asking good questions that you prevent problems from happening, but also get a better sense of how you might add value for someone else. Another one is collaboration. And collaboration is very different than cooperation. Cooperation is what most companies at their best actually are. It means people get along. Collaboration means we count on each other. If I slip up, you're covering my back. Bonuses are sometimes not just what you do yourself, but it's what the team did. Another major one, because it's the core of everything, is communication. How well do they do that? The focus, so they focus on the most important things and not letting what I call the vampires, the things that it's getting done, but it's sucking the blood away from the things that really should be focused on and prioritized. Are they productive? Do they have the knowledge they need? Are they reliable for other people that depend on them? And are they constantly trying to get better? Are they constantly improving? And those are the classic good best practices to have a set of criteria, a common set of criteria that leads itself to improved development and rewarding development that's been there. So again, before I go on, quick comment. Is this helpful so far? This quick review helpful so far? Getting value from it? You can drop that in the chat room quickly. It'd be nice to have some feedback there. All right, thank you.
It does sound, Dave, like we can turn off those closed captionings. I guess it's a new feature in Zoom where each attendee can turn captions on their own.
Do you know how to instruct them to do that? Because I wouldn't know how to do that.
I'm guessing it's the show captions button in the bottom row, but no, I can't be 100% certain.
Okay. Well, if someone can in the chat room how we do that, that'd be awesome. Thank you. All right. A few more best practices. Again, these fit in general, but especially if you're using the classic approach. Really important one. Keep the end in mind. Ask yourself when you're giving a performance review, what if when they go home and tell their significant other about the review, or their friends about the review, or the peers about the review, what would they likely say? Because most people don't give all the details. They usually walk away with 3 or 4 major things. You could have discussed 20 or 30 things. They're going to summarize that down to 2 or 3 things. And it's going to be based on their perceptions, but their perceptions to them are facts. It's going to be based on their feelings, but their feelings to them are facts. Because we tend to take our opinions, our perceptions, our feelings, and we see them as facts. Doesn't mean they are, but the reality is they're likely to do that. So we got to ask ourselves, end in mind, what are they going to take away? 2, it's going to be positive. Some specific positive things, big picture of outcomes that we're looking for out into the future, right? So positive, here's how you can help. Here's how you add value. It inspires people to know how and where they add value. And be careful of the negative trap. When you get into detail in a performance review, it generally only creates a liability, right? Try to stay away from anything emotional, because the more you get into the detail, the more likely it's going to result in a debate. You know, when you say, no, I think you got to improve here, this has been a problem, and you add detail to it, they'll grab the detail and they'll go, yeah, but. More likely to get defensive. And if they get defensive, not likely to get great growth out of the meetings. So, best practice, the meeting itself. Share prior to the meeting. Why are we doing a performance review? And have them, I always did this, have them do a self-appraisal before the performance review. See what they thought, see what they put into it. You may see some things that you would have overlooked, and if you overlooked it and they thought it was important, we're gonna have a bad outcome. Share with them the process that you're gonna use when you talk to them, and the key milestones between now and when you can have them. Second, schedule it in advance. I mean, in advance, at a convenient time for both of you, and at least an hour. Very important. Don't do it in your office. Don't do it where it's clear you're the authority figure, because once you're the authority, it takes away from an exchange, right? And again, if you've ever given performance reviews or gotten performance reviews, which probably almost everybody on here has, you know there's anxieties. And the thing is, you want to at least try to reduce those anxieties. So, reinforce the objective. And the primary objective ought to be, how do you help them succeed? If they're on your team, you want to be seen as an advocate, because if they don't see you as an advocate for them and their best supporter, it's probably not going to work. In fact, the statistics show that employees, biggest reason employees quit is because of their boss, right? And the question is, how do you handle being a friend or boss to your employee? Because it's hard to avoid emotions. Yes, it is. And with friends, it's emotional during that time, and make it really clear that when you're in boss mode, we pull the emotions out. So yeah, Buffy, I had a lot of times where I had very close friends that reported to me. I have a friend I just saw yesterday in Fort Myers, because I'm down here visiting. And wow, let me think back. Yeah, she started working for me in 1990, and up through 95, she's still one of my best friends. And there was a lot of emotion when we were in the friend mode, but I made it very clear, okay, I'm now in the boss mode. And she understood that and respected that. And we both understood, yeah, if we can't transition back and forth, we're not going to end up good friends, and we're not going to end up a good team together. So to mitigate anxieties, again, reinforce the objectives is to be their advocate. And that's why you want to ask for input and tell them, I need input from you because I want to make sure I'm being fair. I want to make sure that it's clear perspective that I have. Frankly, I need your input to make sure I'm being valuable for you and I'm clear to you, because the purpose of a performance review should not be, here's what you're doing wrong, which is what most of them are. Or a lot of them are, you're good, but. Well, you're good, but people don't walk away and thinking, I'm going to put more effort in. A little bit crazy. You want to clarify at the end, pull it to a summary, make the complex simple. What are we agreeing to right now? What are we agreeing to right now? And if there's gaps in what we agree, let's just recognize it's okay to have gaps as long as there's transparency to them. That you think this and I think this, and it's okay. It's okay. We're going to work together. The meeting should always end with next steps, with what I call SMART goals. And one of the things I see everywhere, and with the clients I've worked with and in my professional career, most goals are wish lists, not effective. If a goal isn't specific, if I can't tell exactly what it is, if I can't measure it. And if I can't know when it's supposed to happen, it's not a goal. That's a wish. And wishes is great it works great at Disney, but it doesn't work great in the business world. And then you want to document it. If you do those things, well, even on a base classic view of performance reviews, you're going to have better outcomes. So the core suggestions are listen and learn before trying to be understood. We usually go into these things, so much of what we think, we sort of show up and throw up. That's not helpful. You want to build a trusting relationship, a transparent relationship. If you truly, the purpose is to help them improve, which will help a company improve, the organization improve, the division improve, then the whole attitude's got to be, you want to listen, understand how you can help them improve. A doctor doesn't just start analyzing you and telling you what to do. A doctor gets your input. What are you looking for? How can I help you? When they know it's about helping you, how do you do that? You listen and understand before trying to be understood. Proud. Always start off performance reviews. What are you proud of? And if you had some do-overs, what are your do-overs? Great leaders don't focus on what someone didn't get right. They focus on developing people and say, hey, if they didn't get it, wasn't terrific, do they have insight it wasn't terrific? And they know what to do over. And if they know what to do over, you don't even have to talk about the issue because the lesson has been learned. And that's the key. If something didn't go terrifically well, if they've learned the lesson, why rub salt in that wound? It's great that they learned the lesson. The third is, in reviews, I like to use what I call the QBQ. And here's what the QBQ is. Anytime you ask a question, they almost always come back with a fact. And most people take the fact and go on from there and assume the context of the fact. And when someone asks you a question, watch, you'll be surprised. You don't really come back with a fact. Facts on their own are not helpful unless you know the context of the facts. So what does that mean? I'm with an employee and they ask me a question I know is a serious question. I don't answer it right away, which is hard to do. It takes practice. I don't answer it right away. Why? I want to get context first to make sure I understand why they're asking the question, how they plan on using the question, because here's what I know about questions. When people run out of their facts, you get the thing that's really important, the experience that they're trying to avoid. Think about that. When someone asks you for a fact, what are they looking for? They're using the facts to make assumptions and form opinions on how it affects them, the experience you're helping them avoid or gain. So QBQ means before you answer a question, try to find the question behind the question. Different ways of doing it. Restate the question. Hey, here's what I think I heard, but I'm not sure I got it out. Can you share a little bit more about that and why you asked that? I'd be happy to answer it. Use techniques like that or restate the question. People usually add more. Another one, and this is just in general in leadership. It's hard to do. You got to practice this. Anytime there's a problem, don't use the word problem. They use the word problem, switch it to, let's discuss the situation. And you yourself, don't bring up problems, discuss the situation. Here's why. When you switch a problem to a situation, one, it's not a character attack, which hardly ever works. And two, you're going to see a lot more options because sharing a problem comes with the assumption of what the cause is. Changing that problem to a situation takes away the assumption of what the cause is and generally leads to a better outcome. And really important, celebrate successes. And a lot more than you think you need to. Studies show if you're not doing that at least every 7 days, not really being a great leader. Man, I remember when I first saw that in the study, I used to think if I shared positive feedback with my team once every 3 months, I was awesome. No, it wasn't awesome. And that's what the data shows. And again, people tend to leave companies based on the relationship with their boss. So what's the potential benefit of these classic reviews? One, it's going to enhance position clarity, right? What are my roles, responsibilities, and expectations? Two, going to increase productivity. Okay, it's going to enhance both individuals and the group efforts. Three, it's going to build capabilities because we're getting feedback and coaching on what's going on. Four, more alignment. So we have a better sense of core values and goals and strategies. It's going to support decision-making, especially for promotions and pay. It's going to improve relationships, the organization, the individual. Lawyers are going to tell you it's going to lower liability because you've documented a process and that creates a liability protection. And those are the benefits when it all works well. Give me a quick yes or no. Tell me this is true. Have you ever been in organizations where on paper and in concept, the performance review could be great and it didn't end up great? Any of you been in organizations where it seemed well thought out, it seemed for the right reasons, but it backfired? Have any of you seen that? Anyone witnessed that? Yeah. Always focus on the negative. And you know what? Because it's so easy to see, Buffy. It's so easy to identify the negative. All right. So let me show you a quick statistic just backing that up. People play back. One, they hate performance reviews. All the studies show people hate performance reviews. And if you ask employees, one of the reasons is there's two types. One, the boss is trying to be nice, so they're friendly and fine and positive and everything's great. And they didn't discuss the things that sometimes need to, how are we going to work on it? And some people giving reviews are incredibly accurate. Think about it. You're in an organization, this is going into your file. What kind of boss do you want? One that's accurate or one that's nice? And that's a problem. Two, fascinating. Engagement in the company statistically drops 80% in the first 3 months following performance review. And Angela goes, yeah, you got to build people up before you knock them down. I go one step further. I always try to Oreo it. You got to build them up. You can take a little step backward. And it's like you said, Teresa, you got to sandwich it. You got to end on a positive. Unless it's something you hope they leave. And think about it, they hate the fact that a performance review is defining on that one session, that one meeting, their worth, their value. It's only once a year. Think about that. Once a year. And the other opinion, oh, it's valuable. They love it. Managers, senior management loves it. It's quantifiable. They can identify trends. Leadership seems optimized and it's going to close some skill gaps and focus them. Sounds good in theory. Regardless, there are choices you need to make ahead of that review. Choices you need to make. Don't wing it. First is, what's your objective? Is your objective for decision-making, like pay and promotions and assignments? Or is your objective to build their capabilities, to help develop them further, to help train them more, to help coach them? I used to focus on number two after I had years of disasters with a classical number one. Two, you got to focus on what is going to be measured. The behaviors, frankly, is typically subjective, and it's the how we saw something done and observed, or are you going to focus on the results? Which is typically more objective. It's the what was measured. And again, ideally, they're SMART goals. They're specific. They're measurable. I know when it's going to get done. And the A means it's achievable, it's realistic, and the R means it's relevant to what's important. Who's getting measured? Sometimes, is it just salaried people or is it hourly people? I'll give you one. I deal with an industry a lot that uses a lot of subcontractors. I'm amazed how many they're strategic aligned subcontractors. They don't do a performance review. I do. It's a positive discussion on working to better. What's the benefit? Who inputs and who approves it? Some organizations, the owners want to get totally involved. Is the level above going to approve it before I'm allowed to give it? Is it my boss? Is it 360? All different ways of doing it, but it's a choice. Another key one. Strategically, are you using the performance review to reinforce important messages? So I always use performance reviews as a chance to rediscuss mission, the vision, the strategy, the culture, and how they can personally grow and why they're important to that and why they fit. And you got choices around quality assurance, preparation, the process. Is it clear? Is it fair? Is it consistent? Is it accountable? And again, it's not consistent and accountable when one person's being the nice one and another person doing reviews is the accurate one. So then I'm going to switch. I'm going to switch to a toolbox I've used. And it doesn't mean you should buy into everything. I'm going to share a bunch of stuff. And I want you to think about it this way. One, does it make sense to you? If it doesn't, no problem. Wait for the next idea. Two, if it does make sense and you think it fits you, it might be a good idea, but it might not fit you. So if it fits you, great, consider it. And if it doesn't, wait for the next idea. And three, if you understood it and it fits you, third question is, you think it's important enough? If it's important enough, get it done. If you don't, let's go on to the next idea. So let's get in this toolbox. And I'm going to share just some things on some thoughts you might consider and alternatives to consider of an evolved performance review. Right? So here's a reality check. Right? The pay is tied to the mix of affordability in the company, right? Actual pay increases. It's tied to how well the company did. It often ties to how well the department did. Built into it is the individual performance. And also built in is the value of the responsibilities. Think about that for a second. And promotion ties to a lot of things. Ties to the resource priorities, the resources you have, the business forecast. You know, are we growing and is there room for promotion this year? Again, the individual performance, the capabilities of other people, and again, the affordability and other things. So why do I bring this up? Think about it. We use the performance review to tie directly to pay and promotion. But the reality is, in companies, individual performance is only one sliver of what goes into pay and promotion decisions. So it's sort of crazy to tie the two together, even though everyone does it. But tying the performance reviews directly to pay and promotions is problematic. And when you consolidate all the numbers and triggers and expectations, may not reflect reality. And it's putting the focus and the value of that person on one number. Frankly, people walk out, focus on that one number because they know it affects their pay and promotion, but reality, it doesn't. And all we're doing is distracting them from achieving their plans and leveraging their strengths and helping resolve, not fix weaknesses, help resolve how to get past them. You can't change people. So this formal reviews once a year. If you do a reality check, let me ask you a question. Picture a marriage. And the marriage goes on through the year with the kids and events and jobs and all this thing. Life happens. There's ups and there's downs and things went so. And picture if that couple said, you know what we're going to do once a year? We're going to rate this marriage. Does that make any sense at all? Isn't that sort of what we're doing? It's sort of what we're doing. So ask yourself, does an annual review adequately flex with changes since the last review? Sometimes objectives change, goals change, realities of the business change. And we're simply creating a mess. Versus if you had quarterly snapshots within 90 days, highlighting the status of initiatives that that person's working on and reflecting how past situations were handled and how they could even be more effective and efficient. I like that, Michael. Yeah, that's when the divorce paper happens, and that's when people quit. Think about the key, quarterly. Let's see how we're coming the initiatives, what things went well, what things got in our way, what things were obstacles, and how might we do it a different way next time? Not saying, boy, that wasn't good, saying, what can we learn from it and how do we improve? Wouldn't you get a better outcome? Let's try company values and making it real. How many times have you seen something like, the boss is really upset? Why? Because everybody's ignoring the company values that that boss wrote. In a leadership meeting, the boss asks the team, what are our values? And you know what he hears? Crickets, next to nothing. Because what's true? Nobody on the team knew. I was in a meeting just today, 15 owners, multi-million-dollar companies. And I asked them to each one write on a board what their mission and vision and values were at their company. They couldn't even do it. The implication is, if you want something and you're not reviewing it, and therefore there's no accountability, and it signals that's not important. And it's a waste of time. What's in view is what people do. If your values and mission is important to you, it's one of the most important things to review on a quarterly basis and make it real and hold people accountable to that. I don't mean beat them up. Share with them where they demonstrated it and share with them where they didn't. So next time in this situation, how might we do it better? The focus is on better, not on beating up. Try another reality check. You got a fifth grader, right? Picture this fifth grader is a pretty good kid. And the grades, they had a C average past 2 years. And you hire a tutor. And the compensation incentive is based on 6 months out. Best guess, the tutor says, hey, you let me be the tutor. There's a 33% chance I can get that C to a B- average, which is barely acceptable to you. They say there's a 33%, the tutor says, I can get him to a B average, which you rate as a decent goal. And there's a 33% chance I can get your kid to a B+ average, right? And it's possible. And the agreement is simple. For $5,000, if it's a B or better, that's the agreement. So let's try the situation. 80% through the semester, it's 3 weeks left. Scenario one was, if it looks like it's going to be B-, you know what's going to happen? Tutor's going to quit. No chance we're going to make it. Scenario two, if it's a solid B and a 10% chance only of a B+, tutor quality is going to drop because it's likely to just be a B. So a pessimistic target, B minus, to get 3 grand, likely target, B, they get 5,000, optimistic, 7,000. What's going to happen? Notice how the simple goal and how you set that up can either drive creativity to achieve more or reward people for giving up. It's crazy. What I would suggest, what I do is when I set targets with incentives, there's an incentive when they meet a minimal, there's an incentive when they meet the target, and there's an incentive when they meet the stretch. Right, one more analogy. The owner created a 1-year forecast, and the goal was $1 million profit, which is a 5% increase. And they assumed when they set these financials, the industry was going to go into a recession and be down 15%. What actually happened? The industry was flat. Actual profitability was $1 million. So you're going to judge performance. Did they get an A? Well, story 2. Created major strategic initiatives. One of the goals was an acquisition, increase sales 20 million. They assumed they're going to average weather year. The reality is they had 3 times as many hailstorms. This is a roofing company. They hired quality crews rapidly, and they doubled their plan. But they didn't get around to the acquisition. So what happened? Are you going to give them an F? Because the goal was an acquisition. Crazy. Annual. So smart goals developed on assumptions that are that far out a year to reflect an employee's commitment to the business and their actions is nuts. And it's what we do. Wouldn't you rather a team focused laser way to adapt quickly to evolving situations, to update priorities based on changes that are happening, to do ongoing status reviews of how things are going and what we're doing based on ongoing observations we're actually remembering and seeing and have the actions that were taken, and how could we improve them in the same situation next time? Here's an analogy. If you say to your kid, I saw you do this, and I'm disappointed in your attitude. I think your beliefs are flawed. And if I see it again, here's a consequence. How likely is that going to be effective? And isn't that what we do? Versus the parent that says, let's talk about helping you be even better. All right. Remember when you were in this situation and I hoped your action would be this, and that your action wouldn't be this. Let me explain why I hope that. Now, I'm confident that you can do it differently because I've seen you do it before. Here's an example before. Can I have your commitment that next time we're going to try to be a little bit better because I know you can be better? Which of these 2 approaches is likely to be successful? Notice the difference. This is the key takeaway I want you to have. Most reviews are judgments. Great reviews are as an advocate, and it's how you discuss them. Now, I'm not saying you can be an advocate for every employee. There are some, you got to change them or you got to change them. My thought on that is that should be less than 20% of the employees. So, typical reviews are either prosecutor and the judge, right? Typical scale is outstanding, exceeds expectations, meets whatever, and the scale's got to fit. Results are arbitrary. As an advocate, you focus on the current activities. What initiatives got completed? Which ones didn't? Which ones are still active and which ones got modified because things changed? And what things got deferred is our priority. And that's reflecting the real attitude you want employees to have. Adapt quick to the reality of what's going on. And then instead of the outstanding exceeds whatever, change it to observed. You know, I almost always notice this, right? Role model. You're a great role model for this. I see this frequently. Please continue to focus on that. I see this occasionally. Can we develop that into an opportunity? I see this one seldom. Let's see if we can improve it. Advocate. So here's my rule of thumb. Bottom 10% of my organization, I'm more likely to be a prosecutor and judge. We're going to have action plans and we're going to resolve the issues, or they're not going to stay. 40% of people, my role is, it's a little bit advocate, a little bit judge, mostly advocate, 65%, right? Depending on where they are, we're going to improve some weaknesses, 35% of strengths, but my top half, I'm an advocate, period. There is no benefit of taking the average people and putting them down. So try to make sure the actions are 85% on building their strengths. That's by far the minority of it. And recognize here's some areas that we can still improve. Focus on what they do well. And avoid attacking them. Focus on things they observe. So think about this intellectually. We've got the individual. We've got their capabilities. We got their attitudes. We got their perceptions. The employees own that. They engage with the company. There's communication. There's the experience with the company. The company and the individual mutually own that. Then you've got the employees' observable responses and actions. That's the result. So the focus on the observations and responses, focus on the behavior. That's the key. When you focus on your perceptions of attitudes and values, all they're going to do is get defensive and unproductive. If you focus on the behavior, it's a productive discussion. If you focus on the capability and offer to help and demonstrate support, you're going to have good outcomes. So here are some of my go-to questions you might want to use. These are the key. I'd start off with, all right, tell me about some value that you're adding and how you've increased value for the organization. Since our last time, these are the initiatives you told me you were going to work on. Let's see the status of those and talk about it. Then say, okay, what are your major initiatives to increase value between now and next quarter when we do this again? 2, what discoveries did you make in the last quarter they actually got to use? You know, since last time we talked, these are the ones you said you were going to try to make discoveries in. How did that go? What are the next one? Last time we talked about partnerships you were going to build, building relationships. You said 3 major ones. How are they? What's the status? What are your next ones? We talked about how last time these were 3 major things on how you're going to improve your processes, be faster and more reliable. What's the status? What are the new ones? We talked about waste and your initiatives to help lower it, the status. And capability, we talked about improving capability yourself, people you're responsible for, equipment, people, resources, whatever. These are your initiatives. To see the key point is I'm taking value, discoveries, partnerships, process, waste, capability, and culture. And once a quarter, we're saying, what are the 1 or 2, 3 initiatives? And it may not be in every category every time. What are the major initiatives for this quarter? And then when you have the review, it's these are the initiatives we said. What's the status of them? And what are the new ones? Now we're adapting. Now we're evolving. Now we're building. So tell me what you thought. Was today helpful for you? Was today helpful for you? And how did we do? Did you get insights? As you said, it would be successful for you if you got insights in the classic performance review, common process, but best practice to consider if it's going well. You know, there's no right way to do it. It's ideally a supportive system. And did you gain value today in seeing how you might shift from a focus on the past to to put all the focus, most of the focus on the performance review and how do we get better for the future? How can we help them as their advocate get better? Not beat them up for what they got done, but discuss areas where in the same situation, what can we learn? How can better? 2, dismantle that compensation and promotions from the performance review, because all it does is add bad stuff. And we know compensation promotions aren't usually, performance reviews only one sliver. 3, are you incorporating values in the discussion? Because if you're not building a healthy culture, which is the key to greatness in any company. You see the value of quarterly snapshots based on observations that we're readily able to talk about and get benefit from. And designing reward systems that actually pivot with what the priorities are. How'd we do, Buffy? Thank you. Sounds like you enjoyed it. Other people? What'd you think? We have examples of performance review forms. The one I do, and you can write to me and I'll share with you some, but the one I showed you, this one I used all the time. The only thing I would add to that major is discussion of the mission and values. What's important? How we behave. Right? So again, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I enjoy being able to work with you in this way. If you like the kind of presentations I do one a month, and you can look back, there's been some done in the past, and I'm going to keep trying to do this for you. So again, I really appreciate that you came. I really appreciate you're finding it important enough to be here tonight, and that I could work with you to help you with your teams make the world a little bit better, because we were all there. Thank you, everybody. Good night.